Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be starting a new playlist which is projects in Python. So we're going to be building different projects in this playlist, and today is going to be the first episode where we're going to be building a rock, paper, scissors game. All the knowledge we need to build this game is from the playlist Learn Python. So once you've finished that playlist, you can come here and do different projects. So we're going to go ahead and create a new folder. So we're going to say open folder. Then here we're going to right click and go to new folder, and we're going to call it Python projects. And we're going to select that folder. And in here we're going to create a new file. We're going to call it rps.py, which stands for rock, paper, and scissor. So in here, the first thing we need to do is get a plan to what we're going to do. So we're going to be using functions to organize our code, and we're going to be using a new statement that we have not seen before, which is the import statement. So let's start with that. What does the import statement do? The import statement takes code that other people wrote and it puts it inside your code. That means you can use the functions that other people wrote inside your own code. In our rock, paper, scissors project, we're going to be using the random library, which includes a function called randint, which helps us select a random number from a selected range. And we'll see how that is useful in our project. So what is the plan? We're going to have an array that's going to contain the three choices that we have, that is rock, paper, and scissor. And we're going to use the randint function to get a random index between 0 and 2, because arrays or lists start indexing at 0, so it's going to be 0, 1, 2 for rock, paper, and scissor. And it's going to be random. That means that is going to be the computer's choice at random. Then we're going to have one function that deals with the logic. That means it's going to compare the computer move and the move we enter, and it's going to spit out a value, or it's going to add to the computer score or the player score depending on what move we make. Then we're going to have another function that's going to calculate the final score. That means it's going to compare the player score and the computer score, and it's going to print out who won. And finally, we're going to have a play function, which is going to consist of a loop that's going to run a certain amount of times. That means it might run 5 times if we want 5 rounds. That is going to be decided when we run or when we write the code. So let's get started. So as I said, we're going to use the import keyword to import a library called random, where we're going to be using a function from this library, and I'm going to be showing you the syntax when we get there. So we're going to have a list of choices, as we said. These are the list where the computer is going to take its choice from. So it's going to have rock, it's going to have paper, and it's going to have scissor. And we're going to initialize the player score and the computer's score, which is going to both be 0 at the start of the round. So we're going to have 0 for the player score, and we're going to have 0 for the computer score as well. Now we can start writing our function. So we're going to start with the logic function. That means it's going to compare the player move with the computer move. So we're going to use the def keyword, and we're going to call it rps logic, and it's going to take 2 parameters or 2 inputs. That's going to be the player's move and the computer's move. So we're just going to call it p move for player move and c move for computer move. So what are we going to do here? We're just going to be comparing these moves. So let's start with if the computer move is equals to rock. So in this case, there's going to be 3 possibilities. We could also play rock and it's going to be a tie. We can play scissors and the computer is going to win that round. And we can play paper, we would win that round. So let's start with when we both say rock. So for clarity purposes, we're just going to print out what each move is, what that means, what our move and what the computer's move is. We're going to be using what is called a formatted string. What is a formatted string and what makes it different from a normal string? What makes it different is that we can substitute variables directly into the string. What does that mean? So the syntax is simply f followed by double quotes. So in here we're going to say computer, actually we are going to say player first, player, and here we are going to substitute the move that the player made, which is going to be p move, and we'll also print out the computer's move. So we're going to put a little bit of space and we're going to say computer, and we're going to substitute in c move, which is going to be the computer's move. And we're going to have multiple of these, so to save time we're going to use copy and pasting. So we're going to copy this, and here we're going to first deal with the three moves where the computer says rock and we say something else. So we're going to have one and we're going to have another one. In all these cases, the computer is going to have rock. So in the second case, we're going to change our move and we're going to make it paper. And in the final one, we're going to make it scissor. So that means we've dealt with all the replies we could have when the computer plays rock. So what we need to change here is we need to change the remaining if statements. Here we're also going to be introduced to a new syntax called else if. What does that do? So we have an if, we've seen an else. So what does an else if do? So it's going to do the if statement, it's going to compare whatever condition we've put in the if statement. Then it's also going to check the else if statement. So that means it's just like else, but when we have another condition to check. So when we have multiple conditions to check in one block, we use a series of else if statements. So here we're going to have an else if. The syntax is ELIF, which is abbreviated to ELIF, which stands for else if. So we're going to have more else if statements. So what are we going to do? So when the computer move is rock and our move is rock, that means there is nothing that updates in the player score or in the computer score because it's a tie. But we're just going to print out each player score in each round so it's more clear. So here we're going to print out, let's just print an empty line. And between those empty lines, we're going to have the player score and the computer score. So we're going to print out computer followed by computer score. And we'll also have player followed by the player's score. So that is going to print the player score and the computer score in each round. And when the computer's move is rock and our move is paper, that means paper beats rock. So the player is going to get an additional score. So here we're going to add 1 to player's score. So we're going to use the syntax we've seen before, which is plus equals 1. This is going to add 1 to the player score. Then again, we want to print out the current score. So we're going to copy this and paste it here. And in the third elif statement, the computer is rock and we are scissor. That means the computer beats us. So we're going to increase the computer's score by 1. And again, we're going to print out the computer and player score. Now we've dealt with all the possibilities when the computer move is rock. So we're going to go to the next move, which is going to be, let's say it's going to be scissors. So we're going to again paste. Actually, we need to copy again. So we are going to just copy this else if statement. And we're going to paste it. And here we're going to make the computer's move scissors. So it's going to be scissor. And let's just start with the player move also being scissor. So in this case, the computer score won't be updated, so it's going to be a tie. And here we're going to copy this and paste it 2 more times to cover all the possibilities when the computer move is scissor. So 1, then 2. So here on the second one, we're going to make our player's move. Let's make it paper, which means the computer move beats us, so we're going to increase the computer score by 1. And in the final one, we're going to make this rock, which means we beat the computer, so we're going to increase our score by 1. And finally, we're going to deal with the conditions when the computer move is what is left, that is when the computer move is paper. So let's just copy one of these, then we'll paste them here, and we're going to make the computer move paper. So when the computer move is paper and our move is paper, it's a tie, so no one's score is going to be increased. And we're just going to copy this and paste it 2 more times, cover all the possibilities. So the second one, we're going to make our move, let's say scissor. So that means we beat the computer, so we're going to add our score. So we're going to increase player score by 1. And in the final one, we're going to make our move rock. That means the computer beats us, so we're going to increase the computer's score by 1. So you can pause the video and look at this logic. It's actually quite simple, but it's a bit too much to type. So this is all we need for the RPS logic function. That means this is going to check our logic. The next function we're going to have is the function that's going to print out the final result. That means which side won. That means did the player win or did the computer win. So here we're going to define another function. We're going to call it final score. It's going to take no input. It's only going to display the winner. So what it's going to do is it's going to compare player score and computer score. So if the player score is greater than the computer's score, it's going to print out player 1. And we're going to use the else if statement. So it's going to check if the player score is less than computer score. Then it's going to print computer 1. And finally, we're going to have an else statement. That means if neither of these are true, that means player score is equal to computer score. And in that case, it's going to print it's a tie. So this is just the final score function, which is just going to print out the final score. Now we have one function remaining, which is the play function, which is going to contain the loop that runs as long as the game runs. So we're just going to call it play. Again, it takes no input. And here we're going to enter the number of rounds, which in our case, let's just make it 5. And we're going to do the current round, which means at the start, it's going to be 1. So our loop is going to run as long as current is less than or equal to round. And in each round, we're going to increase current. So what are we going to do? We're going to have a while loop with the condition while current is less than or equal to rounds. We're going to do the following. So what are we going to do here? We're going to take the player's input. First, we're going to say, we're just going to call a player, and we're going to take an input from the player. We're going to say rock, paper, or scissor. And we're going to take the player's input. Next, we're going to have the computer's input. As we said before, we're going to be using the random library, and we're going to get a random integer from 0 to 2. Why from 0 to 2? Because our list contains 3 elements. So the first element has index 0, second has 1, and the third has 2. So we're going to get a random number from 0 to 2 each round. That means the computer's choice is always going to be random. So to do that, we're going to go down and say computer is equals to choices, and we're going to access one of the elements from the list using square brackets. And in here, we're going to use the random library. And we're going to do that by putting in the library's name followed by a dot. So here we see all the functions in the random library. As we said, we're just going to be looking at one, which is the randint function. It's going to take two numbers, the start and the end of the random integer we want. So we want it from 0 to 2. So this is going to get us our computer's choice. And once we have our computer's choice, what do we want to do? We want to call one of our functions. Which function are we going to call? The logic function, which is RPS logic, and we're going to give it two moves, as we said. Here we call them pmove and cmove, and in those places we're going to have player, which is going to be the player's move, and we're going to have computer, which is going to be the computer's move. And once we get that logic, that's going to work out the scores. Then we're going to have current plus equals 1. So we need to increase current each time, so our game just runs for 5 rounds. And finally, after we've gone through the loop and the game is over, we want to display our final score. So what are we going to do? We're going to call our final score function. So that is it. That is all we need to do. And finally, we're just going to call our function. We know how to call a function. We use its name. So we're going to call the play function because we want to play the game. So this is all the code. If you want to pause and see. And now we are going to save our file and see if we get errors so we can fix them. So we're going to press play. It asks us for rock, paper, scissors. Let's just put in paper. We get an error. So let's see what this error says. It says cannot access local variable player underscore where it is not associated with a value. So when did we use this? So it's getting an error when we're increasing player score by 1. So that is in the logic function. So what is the problem here? When we increase player score by 1, we're supposed to be increasing the global or the variable outside of the functions. We're going to increase them by 1. So we're getting an error because inside the function we do not have a variable called player underscore score. So if we want to use the global one, or the one that works for all functions, the one that's outside all functions, we need a special statement, which I'm going to write right now. We need the global statement. So we're going to say global player underscore score, and we'll also have that for the computer score. So this means in this function, use the global, or the ones that are outside the function, use those variables for player underscore score and computer underscore score. So that is what these two lines do. So now we're going to save our file again and we're going to run it. We're going to run it from the terminal this time. We're going to say Python 3 followed by the name of our file. Okay, it asks us for rock, paper, or scissors. Let's put in paper. Okay, we played paper, the computer played rock, that means we beat it. So we got an additional point. Let's just play rock. Again, we played rock and the computer played scissors, so we beat it again. Let's play rock again. Oh, this time the computer played paper, so it beat us, so the computer score is updated. Let's play scissors. Let's play scissors. It's a tie, that means we both played scissors, so the score is the same. And we're at how many rounds did we play? This is 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the final round. So if the computer beats us this round, that means it's a tie. If we beat them, then we win. So let's put in rock. Unfortunately, the computer played paper and it became a tie, so it prints out it's a tie. So you can edit this code and you can increase the number of rounds if you want. All you have to do is go to the play function and increase this round variable. You can play around with the code. So this is the project on a simple text-based rock, paper, scissors game. Thank you for watching this video, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more daily programming videos.